Hi, Edgar.
Hello, do you hear me well?
Well, I am online.
Okay, no, but that's fine. You hear me and I hear you.
I can
Thank you
I
very
can
much.
hear you very well.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I don't need to test.
Jadi ini kalau si pembicara MC
Check.
kita buat MC kan dulu.
Okay. Is it clear, the voice from the online session? Can you hear the voice for the online participant?
I can hear you.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Rickard.
Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the international panel discussion titled For Displacement and Politic Resentment Rohingya Refugee and Southeast Asia. We are honored to host this important conversation, and we sincerely thank you for all of you being here, our distinguished speaker, our guests, faculty members, participants, both offline and online. This discussion was not meant to be held for the public event, but we try to accommodate by organizing the hybrid event. My name is Kamilatul Farihah, as a part of Center for Political Study, University of Indonesia, and I will be your master ceremony for this event. Without any further ado, to officially commence this event, please welcome Dr. Nurul Isnaini, the Vice of Dean Academic Research and Student Affairs at the University of Indonesia, to deliver her opening remark. Dr. Nurul, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you, Master of Ceremony. Very good morning to all of you, both those who attend this seminar or workshop in the auditorium of Juwono Sudarsono, as well as those who attend through Zoom meeting. First of all, thank you very much for inviting us to open this very important academic forum. On behalf of the Dean, Professor Dr. Semiarto Aji Purwanto, I'm pleased to open this important forum. But certainly, I do apologize for the absence of the Dean in this important forum because of some reasons. But we do hope that without that matter, this program, this important academic forum will be held smoothly and of course will bring beneficials for all of us who attend this meeting. And distinguished speakers, colleagues and participants, ladies and gentlemen, very good morning and welcome again to the Faculty of Social and Political Sciences Universitas Indonesia. Please allow me to read the opening remarks for this important meeting. It's a great pleasure for us to open today's panel discussion on forced displacement and the politics of resettlement, Rohingya refugees in Southeast Asia. On behalf of the faculty, I extend my sincere appreciations to the Center for Political Studies, or PUSKAPOL UI, headed by Dr. Huria, my bestie or my best friends, because long time ago we share our good moments in University Malaya together. Thank you, Dr. Huria. Also, we would like to appreciate the Asia Research Center, or IRCUI, as the co-organizer of this forum, as well as the International Development Research Center, or IDRC, for organizing and again supporting this important event. Today's discussion is timely and urgent. As we all know, the Rohingya crisis is one of the most pressing humanitarian issues in our region. It has tested the limits of regional cooperation, national policies, and the capacity of civil society. While the crisis itself is rooted in the violence and discrimination that the Rohingya face in Myanmar, its consequences have been regional in scope. Countries like Malaysia, Thailand, and of course Indonesia, though not parties to the 1951 Refugee Conventions, have become de facto host to thousands of displaced Rohingyas. What is increasingly troubling, however, is the rising wave of resentment and hostility directed at the Rohingya in these host societies. This shift from reluctant sympathy to open hostility is not accidental. It is shaped by political narratives, media portrayals, and the broader politics of insecurity and fear. As scholars, practitioners, and students of the social sciences, we have the responsibility to interrogate these narratives and examine how state responses and public attitudes are shaped by political interests, historical legacies, and social dynamics. This panel, therefore, serves not only as an academic discussion, but as a reflection of our commitment to human rights, democratic resilience, and inclusive regionalism. These are values that lie at the core of our faculty's mission and our research priorities. We are proud to host today's discussion as part of our efforts to link academic knowledge with public concerns and regional policy challenges. I would like to thank all of our distinguished speakers, Dr. Nini Kyo, Professor Paula Banerjee, Dr. Aizat Kari, Dr. Huria, and Ms. Yuyun Wahyuningrum, for sharing their time and insight with us. Your work and experience are critical to deepening our understanding and generating constructive responses. I wish you all a fruitful and engaging discussion. May today's dialogue lead to new ideas, stronger collaboration, and meaningful impacts. Thank you. And before I close my opening remarks, I do apologize for not being able to stay for longer in this event, but we do hope that Dr. Huria will share results of this event, this workshop, to all of our Civitas Academica in the Faculty of Social and Political Sciences, Universitas Indonesia. Thank you again, and we do appreciate for all your contributions for this great event. Thank you. Very good morning to all of you.
Hello, should I jump in?
Hello. Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Nurul, for the valuable remark. For the next section, we honor to have Mr. Edgar Rodriguez from the International Development Research Center for our key partner and supporter for this event, who will also share this opening remark. Mr. Edgar, you may now begin your remark.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you all. It is a great honor for me to be here today, surrounded by distinguished panelists and audience. Really appreciate the insights that we're going to be sharing today. I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to the organizers and the host of this important event, particularly the Faculty of Social and Political Sciences at Universitas Indonesia, and the leadership and researchers at the Center for Political Studies, as well as the Asian Research Center, or ARC. I'm especially grateful to ARC Director Inaya Ragmani and the Deputy Director Diatika Widya Permata Yasi, who will kindly serve as our moderator today. Thank you very much, Dia. We're looking forward to hearing from the researchers that have been part of these efforts, such as Dr. Huria, and in absence, but in thought, King Tisa, whose dedication has brought us together in this vital conversation. I would also like to acknowledge the presence of the other speakers, such as Yuning Grum. She's Executive Director of the ASEAN Parliamentarians for Human Rights, whose mandate remains invaluable for the region and the world. I also want to acknowledge the interventions by Professor Isaac Kairi from the National University of Malaysia. My name is Edgar Rodriguez, and I represent Canada's International Development Research Center, or IDRC. Since 2017, our center, in partnership with Global Affairs Canada, has supported the Knowledge for Democracy Myanmar initiative, or K4DM. This initiative was established to promote democratic development in Myanmar and in neighboring countries. Ironically and tragically, our work became even more urgent after the 2021 military coup in Myanmar, which pushed us to shift our focus beyond the country's borders to support those displaced by violence and political instability. This includes the Rohingya, of course, one of the largest displaced populations within ASEAN, and one that continues to face statelessness, discrimination, and exclusion, with no durable peace in sight. In this context, K4DM has been proud to support the Universitas Indonesia, among other partners, to expand higher education and research opportunities for Rohingya youth. This work aims to amplify their voices and empower them to support their communities, especially those living in camps under extremely difficult conditions. I recognize that this is an idealistic effort, but it is also a necessary and a practical one. Despite all odds, there are Rohingya men and women determined to pursue education, to contribute meaningfully to their communities, and to claim their rightful place in the world. We're not alone in this mission. We're grateful to acknowledge our partners, such as Parami University, an online university originally based in Myanmar, and the Asian University for Women in southern Bangladesh. These institutions have made critical contributions to educating Rohingya students and deserve our collective recognition. At IDRC, we also have the privilege of working with two distinguished scholars as part of our Forced Displacement Research Chairs initiative. And they have been mentioned before, Professor Nini Shaw, formerly at Chiang Mai University and now with the University of Bristol, and Professor Paula Banerjee, who leads the Center for Gender and Forced Displacement at the Asian Institute of Technology in Bangkok, Thailand. Both have demonstrated remarkable courage and clarity in their work on displacement, and we are proud to support and learn from them. As we reflect on the theme of this event, forced displacement and the politics of resentment towards the Rohingya in Asia, we must confront the reality that Rohingyas have not only been denied their rights in Myanmar, they are also met with increasing rejection in host countries, including India and Bangladesh, where governments and society as a whole have not always been welcoming. So we must ask, how do we respond to resentment? How do we build societies where empathy overrides exclusion and where the most marginalized are not silenced but supported? There are no easy answers, but I believe that learning, studying, and public debate, like what we are going to be doing here today, can help us build a shared understanding and perhaps even a common destiny where there is no space for hatred and no future in silence. I encourage you to explore our publication Knowledge for the Excluded, which outlines many of the efforts supported by IDRC to promote research, inclusion, and justice for displaced populations, especially the Rohingya. In a world increasingly marked by division and polarization, we must hold fast to values of civility, compassion, and solidarity. Only then we can hope to bring peace and development to those who have been forcibly displaced, and to extend a helping hand rather than a closed fist. Thank you again for being here. I look forward to learning with and from all of you today. Wassalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you. Thank you very much. Terima kasih. Back to you, Teuku.
Thank you, Mr. Egot, for your thoughtful word. Okay, before we proceed to the discussion, we kindly invite our speakers and our guests for a group photo session and souvenir presentation. And I would like also to invite Dr. Nurul to present the souvenir to our speakers. Come forward. Miss Paula, Professor Paula, we will take a picture together. Okay, thank you so much for Dr. Nurul and all of the speakers. Okay, now it is my pleasure to introduce our moderator for today's discussion, Dr. Diatika Widya Permatayasih. Dr. Diatika hold a PhD from ASEAN Institute, University of Melbourne. She currently lectures in the Department of Sociology at the University of Indonesia and she serves as a co-director of the Asia Research Center, University of Indonesia. With that, I now hand over the discussion session to Dr. Tika. Dr. Tika, you have the floor.
Thank you very much for the introduction. My name is Tika. You can call me Tika. I'm part of the Asia Research Center, Universitas Indonesia. I will be moderating the session today. First of all, I would like to thanks again to all the panelists and all the participants of today forum. I would also extend my thank you to Edgar, IDRC, and K4DM for supporting us in this endeavor. So we actually have these opportunities to talk about forced displacement and politics of resentment as experienced by the Rohingya people. Despite the importance of this topic, I think it's rare to have these sort of opportunities where people from different region in Asia can actually sit together in one room and share our concern and insight from the work that we've done in the past year. Being academic can be lonely because sometimes you feel like you're talking to yourself and your own people. And so it's also a good opportunity to have Mbak Yuyun here, so we can actually connect our research with a policy making process. This is not an instant process, so I would say this is only initial steps, baby steps, but it's a step anyway. So thank you again, everyone. We have 5 panelists today. I will introduce each speaker briefly before their talk. We will start with Dr. Nyi Kao from he's based at Marie Curie Research. He's a Marie Curie Research Fellow at School of Sociology, Politics and International Studies, University of Bristol. Dr. Kiao held a research chair on forced displacement in the Global South. He earned his PhD in International and Political Studies from the University of New South Wales, Canberra. The most important thing is his research explores identity, citizenship, nationalism, forced migration, and contentious politics with a focus on Myanmar and Southeast Asia. The floor is yours. Unfortunately, we will only have 10 to 12 minutes, so very short.
Don't worry.
I am really sorry for that.
It's okay. I have already timed the presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. The
Okay.
floor is yours.
Assalamualaikum, selamat pagi, Bapak dan Ibu sekalian. Terima kasih atas kesempatan yang diberikan kepada saya untuk berbicara di sini hari ini. Don't laugh yet. I'm trying my best. Merupakan kehormatan bagi saya untuk berada di hadapan Anda semua. Okay. So this panel, it's very meaningfully titled Rohingya Forced Displacement and the Politics of Resentment, Rohingya Refugees in Southeast Asia. So we are supposed to look at how 3 Southeast Asian countries, in particular, Malaysia, Indonesia, and Thailand, have responded to the forced displacement of the Rohingya. I'm the first speaker today. It's a great honor to be that. But I think it's helpful for all of us, including the audience, to start by looking at the root causes of the crisis. These causes lie in Myanmar, so I will focus on that part mostly. When it comes to the response from Southeast Asian countries, I will not talk about just one country. Instead, I will speak about some general patterns and trends we can see across the region. The other esteemed speakers on this panel are experts on the individual countries, among other things. They will give you more detailed insights on how each country has responded to the crisis. The Rohingya forced displacement in Myanmar, roots and consequences. The suffering of the Rohingya is one of the most serious humanitarian crises in recent history, at least in this part of the world. We often hear words like displacement, statelessness, and persecution, but for the Rohingya, these are not just abstract terms. Their situation shows what can happen when government policy, ethnic conflict, and religious nationalism come together. To really understand this crisis, we need to look at several things: who the Rohingya are, their legal status, how they have been treated in the past, and how the world is responding to them now. Next slide, please. So who are the Rohingya, right? We talk about the Rohingya all the time, but who are they really, right? So in very general terms, the Rohingya are a Muslim minority group. They live or used to live, unfortunately no longer, mostly in Myanmar, which is a Buddhist majority country. Most of them, as I just said, no longer live in Myanmar. They have been driven away. And there are actually several Muslim majority countries in Myanmar, but the Rohingya have faced the most severe form of discrimination and persecution and hostility from the state. They make up about half or more of Myanmar's Muslim population. Most of them lived in Rakhine state in the west of the country, near the border with Bangladesh. In Rakhine, they have long had a tense and even hostile relationship with the local Rakhine Buddhist majority. This tension plus state violence has led to persecution and waves of large-scale displacement of the Rohingya, at least since the late 1970s. Today, more than 1 million Rohingya live in Bangladesh as refugees. Around 600,000 remain in Myanmar. Of those who remain in Myanmar, about 140,000 are internally displaced. Another 460,000 live under tight restrictions in camps and villages. These numbers show how serious and long-lasting this crisis is. The Rohingya have been marginalized, displaced, and denied their rights for decades. Next slide, please. And when we talk about Rohingya, we frequently hear the word stateless, right? So their statelessness, is it legal fiction or reality, right? One key part of the crisis is admittedly their statelessness. They are often called the largest stateless population in the world, rightly so, but the reality is a lot more complicated, right? They're not legally stateless in a technical sense. They are citizens of Myanmar, even under this problematic citizenship law, but in practice, they have no citizenship rights. Having citizenship and having citizenship rights are not the same thing, right? And they are therefore de facto stateless, right? The turning point came with Myanmar's now very notorious 1982 citizenship law. This law basically created two classes of citizens in Myanmar, native and naturalized. Under this law, the Rohingya were gradually excluded. In early years after the independence, it is very worth noting that Rohingya were even considered native. But from the 1990s onward, the government began to deny and reject their legal status. By 2015, all Rohingya citizenship documents had already been declared invalid. Inside Myanmar, this means they have no legal protection. Outside Myanmar, their situation is even worse. Next slide, please. A history of what has happened to the Rohingya, right? So a history of persecution and violence. The Rohingya have faced waves of persecution and displacement since the late 1970s. This includes state violence, forced displacement, and systematic discrimination. What has happened to them goes far beyond a humanitarian crisis. It includes genocide, ethnic cleansing, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. These abuses did not happen by accident. The Rohingya have been caught between the power of the Myanmar state and hostility from local Rakhine communities. Especially since 2012, anti-Rohingya and anti-Muslim nationalism has grown stronger in Myanmar. This form of Buddhist nationalism promotes fear and hatred. It frames the Rohingya as outsiders and threats. As a result, violence against the Rohingya has become more common and more accepted socially and politically. Many have been forced from their homes. Many have been killed. Many others have fled to neighboring countries like Bangladesh, Malaysia, Indonesia, etc., etc. On the way, they face even more risks, dangerous boat journeys, smuggling, trafficking, and abuse. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, so you can see in this picture, you can see the routes taken by the Rohingya as they flee Myanmar. Most have gone to Bangladesh, but in recent decades, many have also traveled further, crossing the Andaman Sea and reaching other parts of Southeast Asia, like even to Aceh here, right? So Malaysia, Thailand, through the land borders, of course. Next slide, please. So international response and the problem of solutions, so-called solutions, right? The world, of course, it's aware of the Rohingya crisis. There have been a lot of talks about that, but so far, there are no meaningful or lasting solutions, unfortunately. One big challenge is that key countries like Bangladesh, Malaysia, now increasingly Indonesia to a certain extent, are not part of the 1951 Refugee Convention. This means they're not legally required to give, those countries are not legally required to give rights or protections to the Rohingya refugees. As a result, many of these governments in Southeast Asia, in South Asia as well, treat Rohingya refugees as a security threat, not as people in need of protection. This has made it harder to respond in a humane way or to find long-term solutions. In theory, there are three doable solutions for refugees. One, voluntary repatriation. Two, local integration. Three, third country resettlement. For the Rohingya, all three are extremely difficult right now. It has been so, right, since the very beginning. First, repatriation to Myanmar is very unsafe, increasingly so after the 2021 coup. The country is still very unstable, and the government, I don't know who to call government in Myanmar now, but anyway, the government shows no interest in accepting the Rohingya. Two, local integration in countries like Bangladesh is almost very unlikely. These countries face economic pressure, political challenges, and social resistance. Three, resettlement to third countries. It's only possible for a very small number, right? But not on a large scale that is necessary. To make matters worse, public attitudes are influenced by misinformation and harmful narratives against the Rohingya. These make people in those destination countries less willing to host refugees or support solutions. Of the three solutions, repatriation is often said or preferred to be the most sustainable, but in the case of the Rohingya, it is still a very distant goal. For repatriation to work, it must be safe, voluntary, and dignified. Right now, none of those conditions exist. Myanmar is under military rule back again now, and the military government continues to deny the Rohingyas rights and identity. International talks and diplomatic efforts have not made much progress either. The deeper problem is that Myanmar's nation-building process is built on exclusion. The idea of who belongs in Myanmar is based on ethnicity and religion. As long as this idea continues, it will be very hard to bring the Rohingya back with their rights and dignity home to Myanmar. Some conclusions. The Rohingya crisis is long-standing, complex, and deeply rooted. At its core is a mix of statelessness, religious nationalism, and political exclusion. These have been reinforced by decades of discrimination and violence. International aid has helped to relieve some suffering, but the deeper political issues remain. Real progress will require more than just humanitarian help. It will need a serious rethink of how Myanmar defines citizenship, inclusion, and accountability. And until that happens, the Rohingya will remain in limbo, displaced, stateless, and uncertain about their future. And now it is time for some positive points. Since the 2021 military coup in Myanmar, the so-called Spring Revolution or resistance against the coup has shown some clear signs of progress, at least in both speech and writing about the Rohingya. But does that mean everything is now okay for the Rohingya? Well, not quite. There are two key points we need to keep in mind. First, why the revolution, the Spring Revolution, has shown some hopeful signs of accepting the Rohingya, we need to ask, are these just surface level changes? Deep down, negative feelings about the Rohingya may still exist in the minds of many people in Myanmar. Right now, people are focused on fighting the military and surviving the crisis. But once the revolution is hopefully over, will they stay welcome the Rohingya? Even more importantly, what happens if the revolution fails or doesn't fully succeed? Will the issue of the Rohingya be forgotten again? Will the people of Myanmar say, we haven't won against the military yet, so we can't really do with this problem now? Second, before the coup, the Rohingya issue was often seen as a conflict between two sides, the Rohingya Muslims and Rakhine Buddhists, or Rohingya fighters and the military. But that view leaves something important out, the role of the wider Myanmar society. Many people, directly or indirectly, contributed to the growing hostility towards the Rohingya, especially after 2012. As a result, the Rohingya community became more and more excluded, eventually losing legal status and even basic identity documents. These strong anti-Rohingya attitudes give the Myanmar military more confidence to carry out their brutal actions in 2017, which is now being recognized as ethnic cleansing or even genocide. Why did this happen? A big reason was the absence of leadership that promoted equal citizenship in Myanmar. The kind of leadership that treated all citizens fairly, no matter their background or ethnicity. So what can be done to fix deeply rooted problem? I think two small ideas might help, right? First, a Rohingya Truth and Reconciliation Commission, because their fight has been ongoing for decades. This could help the country, that is Myanmar, remember and reflect on what happened to the Rohingyas, especially in a post-revolution Myanmar. Two, strong democratic leadership after the revolution. Leaders must promote and protect the idea that all citizens are equal. And this idea should also be taught in schools and even in the workplace, so future generations grow up believing in fairness and inclusion for everyone. I'll stop here. Thank you very much. I hope I didn't go over there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kiao. It's such an interesting presentation within a very and thank you for providing us with the more general pattern. As you said, as the first speaker, I think that's a really good way to start to roll on the discussion. And also, I would like to note Dr. Kiao Tu proposal for the problem of, I would say, deep-rooted citizenship problem. And we are not talking about contemporary era, but we also talk about something historical. This must not be forgotten in the way we address the issue. Thank you again. So I would like to invite our second speaker, Professor Paula Banerjee. She currently serves as the IDRC Research Chair on Gender and Forced Displacement at Asian Institute of Technology. And she has held leadership roles, including president of the International Association for the Study of Forced Migration and director of the Mahanirban Calcutta Research Group. Most importantly, her work focuses on women in borderlands, forced migration, statelessness, and gender justice. The floor is yours, Professor Banerjee.
Thank you so much, Madam. I hope people in the auditorium can see me and hear me. I'm delighted to be here today, this morning. For me, it's morning as it is for you, but I know we have people joining from Canada to whom it's very late at night. And I want to, thank not only the University of Indonesia, especially the Center on Political Studies in the Faculty of Social and Political Sciences, but I would also like to thank my hosts, that is IDRC, not because they're my host or supporting in the program, but because they have these two programs, the chairs program, and one of the chairs is my brother Nini Cho, who spoke just a couple of minutes back, and the K4DM program, because these programs encourage you to ask questions. These programs support free speech. And this is very, very important in today's world, because constantly people who say the truth are being muzzled. People who work on gender are being marked as DEI, or people supporting diversity. Isn't that what we are supposed to do as world citizens? So I will begin my talk by questioning borders. What is this border? Not between countries, but between South and Southeast Asia. This is not a border drawn by the people of South or Southeast Asia. This is something that was given to us by the American academia. So why are problems divided regionally in such a way which makes the problems difficult to solve? Next slide, please. So Rohingya displacement is something that Nini spoke at length about, and I will not go into the root causes, barring talking about one thing, and that is Rohingyas were there historically in Myanmar, although it is often said that they came as plantation workers from Bangladesh, and that is one of the stated reasons as to why Rohingyas in Myanmar are known as Bangladeshis. But presence of Rohingyas, historians ascertain, was there in Myanmar in the 16th and 17th centuries. So it's a false premise. Next slide, please. So we have all talked about the Rohingya problem as a problem which is long and complex. I won't say it's complex. It's rooted in one thing and one thing alone, and that is hatred. So there's nothing complex about it. Rohingya religion, Rohingya way of life, Rohingya culture, these are considered as markers of difference. And my first premise was to question the border, the artificial border between South and Southeast Asia, and we have formulated our lives on the basis of that. But if border allows us to cross capitals, to exchange capital, it should allow us to exchange thoughts. And I think that is very, very important. Just because we have a South Asia and a Southeast Asia doesn't mean that we should not get together to solve the problematic that is posed for us. I am very, concerned to say that India has been following non-refoulement for 50 years, but suddenly now we are questioning this whole notion of non-refoulement and sending Rohingya refugees back to regions where they will never get a life of security. So you see, repatriation, as Nini very correctly pointed out, of Rohingya refugees is often death sentence. And with the kind of political confusions that are going on in Myanmar and the humanitarian problems that are continuing in Myanmar, it is very, very sad if Rohingyas are sent back to Myanmar in present day. Next slide, please. So here are some of the numbers. These numbers are actually official numbers taken from UNHCR sources. But one has to realize that if there are acts, there are facts. So these numbers do not often, it is just an estimation. We do not have correct numbers for a persecuted group like Rohingyas, because we have to understand that these are only numbers of people who've been registered. There are hundreds of thousands of people who've been, forced to move from the Arakan Hills to different regions because wherever they are going, they're chased out, they're persecuted. We are forgetting our own values of our region, because 1951 Refugee Convention was not a convention that consulted the so-called Global South, or for that matter, South and Southeast Asia. So this does not have our values. For hundreds of years, if we look at this region, millions of people have moved across each other's borders with tolerance, with acceptance. So what we are doing to modernize is to give up our own values of tolerance. I am speaking from a region, Southeast Asia, I'm in Thailand right now. This region have preferred, not a vote in ASEAN, but unanimous decisions in ASEAN. So this region gives to the world the hope that we can solve our problems regionally through unanimity, which very few other regions in the world can boast for. It is often considered as a weakness of ASEAN, but I consider it as a strength of ASEAN, because ASEAN says we can get together, we can solve. So unlike my own region or SAARC, which is almost non-existent, ASEAN exists, ASEAN works. I have worked with ASEAN functionaries on migrant workers, etc. So there's no reason why Rohingyas should not be discussed about. Rohingya problems cannot be solved. Next slide, please. One has to understand that there are multiple layers. So the root cause, as Nini explained, when I talk about it as simple as I have said, it's based on alienness of some population groups who've been constructed as aliens because of their difference in language, their difference in religion, and their perceived difference in culture. However, what happens is that societally, we have placed our women unequal to that of the other sections of the population, and we don't even recognize other sexual diversities. So, societally, if we place women in a disadvantaged position, what happens inevitably is that in political crises, their weakness increases. Although this is not to say that women or even Rohingya women are only victims, because when I have visited the camps, I have seen Rohingya women, their strength actually conveys to us that even though we are speaking from ivory tower, they are much stronger than us because they know how to survive. In their situation, we will not know how to survive. The problem is this perceived notion of alienness of Rohingyas. So every day what is happening, next slide please, every day what is happening is that we are constantly, passing the buck. We are saying, Myanmar is saying that Rohingyas come from Bangladesh. Bangladesh is saying we cannot be host to so many people. Indians are saying, oh, they are a problem of Southeast Asia. Malaysia and Indonesia are saying that, oh, well, they are problems of Myanmar. Then whose problem is it? Is it a regional problem? Is it an international problem? Internationally, we have seen the world is not geared to solutions on these groups, and we will not have to only look at Rohingyas. Let us match us also with people who are trying to escape Gaza, the Palestinian refugees, the Lebanese who are caught in conflict, the Sudanese who are now in, protracted conflict. So the thing is, Rohingyas are not just refugees, Rohingyas are stateless people in our region. Does Southeast Asia support statelessness? I do not think so. I think Southeast Asia is best geared to solve the issue of statelessness if it has the political will to solve it. ASEAN, it is very good that ASEAN depends on unanimity, but ASEAN then have to proactively look at solutions for these groups, and there are solutions. Although people say that solutions are not there, I contest that because what is not there is the so-called durable solution given to us by the Refugee Convention. But the Refugee Convention is a dated document of 1951. After that, we have the Global Compact, we have the OAU Convention, we have millions of other evidences where people have solved problems. Travel to, I'm just back from Africa, travel to Nakivale, and you will see how the refugee problem is being dealt with. So if we look at UN and its durable solutions, we will not find solutions. But solutions are there. If we look at our own region, if we look at South Asia, we will see solutions are there. Number one, we have to stop with hate speech. That is important, not just for Rohingyas, but for our region as a whole. Otherwise, we will end up having Bantustan. We will end up having, groups of people here, there, and everywhere. Because if you start the politics of hatred, you will see it knocking on your borders. You can start hating the Rohingyas for no reason at all. But you will remember what it does is if there is one minor incident, we maximize it. All over Southeast Asia, we are talking about how Rohingyas are a violent group. But we are not saying that they are facing everyday violence. Women are getting raped. You know how the number of raped women has increased in the region? If you look at the communities, you will see that in the last few years, post-COVID years or COVID and after years, it has increased by 50%. Are women's bodies not respected in Southeast Asia? Of course, it is respected. So, there, whether we like Rohingyas or not, we have to stop with hatred. We have to stop with violence. And we have to stop disrespecting women. And there cannot be any impunity on that. The other thing we have to do, which is a failure of our region, is that a session like this is possible because of University of Indonesia. But why, as a region, don't we get together as thinkers, as diplomats, as government representatives, and sit together? Why is that so difficult in this region and talk about an issue like the Rohingyas? Why are we creating, you know, borders such as, oh, this is a diplomatic issue, we cannot talk about it? Only solutions can be found if we, as humanity, if we, as people, and not create borders of diplomats or government or, social scientists or researchers. If we come together and increase our will, I will now offer one solution which might appear revolutionary, and that is, it is time now to create citizens of a region. Rohingyas are people of a region. So if we say that repatriation is the only form of solution, that is wrong. There are Rohingyas living in different parts of this region for 40, 50 years. They have become part of their own habitat. So we have to start thinking how ASEAN can be the front runner of saying these are populations of the region. They are not stateless. Because all our political initiatives are taken of the sovereignty, the notion of the sovereignty of the states. I am not questioning that. I am saying that there is possibility of building together another layer of acceptance, and that is to accept groups as people of the region. And if you look at me, I know my time is running out. If you look at me and ask me what I, as an academic, can offer, one is I would say that regionally we have to declare it's a punishable offense to stop young people from getting educations to further their life's goals, whether they're refugee groups, whether they're Rohingyas, whether they're stateless. Education and training cannot be stopped just because of these artificial borders and boundaries. Number two, as an academic, I would say we should all get together and get to do good research as to the root cause of this hate speech, of this hatred, and address the issue of alienness. Rohingyas are not aliens. They are people of this region. So the solution has to lie with this region, and the solution is possible, because don't forget, state itself is a product of history. It is derivative of the Treaty of Westphalia. Citizenship has emerged as a product of history. So it is time now to recognize regional filiations. If Southeast Asia is a vibrant region, it should be able to accommodate people and not call them stateless, because the term stateless or refugee are alien terms. In our region, we call people our neighbors, our kin, our friends, and not refugees. They can be displaced, but don't mark them as stateless. Make them citizens, or at least people of the region. Thank you very much. I yield back.
Thank you very much, Professor Banerjee. Getting which mic I should use. Thank you very much for the very important to me, one of the main point that Professor Banerjee has is related to the way country find the sovereignty and the impact on something diplomatic, then there are consequences. There are stateless, and that all from actually seeing the problem also I lost my train of thought. So so it's the mic, I'm sorry. But back to the point, it's the idea of sovereignty that actually hinders us from developing, I would say, cross-regional solidarity to fix this problem, to solve the problem. So not to look at individual countries, but to look at what we have in common as a region, and who can we call our neighbors, and to call them our neighbors instead of calling them our enemies. So that's a very insightful ideas. Thank you again, Professor Banerjee. Before inviting our next speaker, I would like to give the opportunity to those on Zoom to type their questions or comments on chat box, if any. We will have a session for Q&A after this session. But if you already have something in your mind, you can just type your question or comments on the chat box. And next, I would like to invite Dr. Aizat Khairi. He holds a PhD in Conflict and Peace Studies from University Science Malaysia. He specialized in refugee and migration issues, transnational and human security, as well as ethnic and community issues, with a strong research focus on Southeast Asia. He's committed to advancing research and education on refugee issues, conflict resolution, and human rights in the region. The floor is yours.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, fantastic, fantastic moderator. All right. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum and a very good morning. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude to the Asia Research Center Universitas Indonesia in collaboration with the Center for Political Study Universitas Indonesia, PUSKAPOL UI, and also the support of International Development Research Center, IDRC. All right, about this panel discussion today entitled for displacement and the policy of resettlement. And today, I would like to share in particular the Malaysia experience in dealing with the issues of Rohingya refugees, okay, that in line with our topic of discussion in terms of forced displacement and the policy of resettlement. And by the way, my name is Aizat, and currently I serving at the Strategy and International Relation Program at the National University of Malaysia, University Kebangsaan Malaysia in Malaysia. All right, so this is, can we go to the first slide? All right, actually this is my first slide, but I would like to skip. We can go to the second slide and then we go back to our first slide. All right, so my presentation actually is a following up from the first and second presenter. And if you ladies and gentlemen aware. All right, so our previous presenter already talked about, the general situation facing by the Rohingya, and also the figures and number of the Rohingya refugees within this region of Southeast Asia. And of course, Malaysia, according to the UNHCR, Malaysia hosts the largest Rohingya population. And based on the recent figure that just shared by the Prof. Paula Banaji, the total of the refugee that registered, okay, with the UNHCR Malaysia, almost 200,000. And based on this number, okay, the Rohingya is more than 100,000. So can you imagine? Okay, Malaysia hosts, almost more than 100,000 Rohingya, and for information that just registered. So can you imagine how many numbers of Rohingya, the remaining who not registered yet with the UNHCR? Okay, so it's quite challenging for the Malaysia to to handle the refugee issue, in particular the Rohingya situation. And I would like to bring our discussion into the key point. Okay, when the issues of the hatred emerged towards the Rohingya people, in particular Malaysia. All right, so actually it's already shared by our first presenter, Dr. Nico. All right, and I do agree. One of the trigger point, okay, that contribute into the sympathiness of the Malaysian people to the Rohingya refugee is according to the 2012, okay, ethnic conflict that emerged at Myanmar, and also it's a boost, okay, worstly by the anti-sentiment Rohingya sentiment movement led by the prominent monk, okay, led by the Asing Oratu back to 2012. Okay, can you go to the another slide, the next slide, and then we can go to the first slide. Next slide, please. All right. So actually, I do study about the Rohingya refugee actually since 2009. All right, since 2009, and during that time, not many Malaysian people address or identify, okay, the Rohingya, because Rohingya sometimes we also quite confusing in order to differentiate between the Rohingya people or the other people. For example, in Malaysia we also have the Indian people, and also we have a migrant worker from the Bangladesh. So it's very difficult for us to differentiate where is the Rohingya, where is the Malaysian, the local Indian, and also the Bangladeshi. Okay, because they are sharing in terms of the skin color. All right, but okay, since the 2012, okay, and also of the media coverage, okay, the Malaysian people as well as the international people starting to identify, okay, the present and also the situation faced by the Rohingya. And during that time, not Malaysia, but all the people, especially within the South Asia region, try to go for the solidarity and show their justice to the Rohingya. And this picture is one of the demonstration, the peace demonstration held by the local people in Malaysia, try to show their solidarity, okay, to support, okay, the human right of the Rohingya. That that their plight, okay, based on the persecution that happened their place of origin in Myanmar. All right, so can we go to our first slide? All right. So if you know, our first slide actually is the one of the symbol of the solidarity made by the Malaysia is they create one of dedicated song, okay, to show their sympathy and solidarity toward the Rohingya. So the title of the song is Selamat Malam Rohingya. So if our admin can play the song, and we can let's hear too. But this song is played in Bahasa. All right, thank you. If you want to listen further, you can, search at the YouTube later on because our time is very limited. Okay, actually a 4-minute song. All right, so actually the song is dedicated especially for the Rohingya in terms of the solidarity and sympathy. But what is going on? Okay, when from the sympathy, okay, turn to hatred by the Malaysian people. So today I would like to share there's some factor contribute into the growing resentment toward the Rohingya refugee in Malaysia. So can we go another slide? Okay, this is one of the example made by the Malaysian people when they are trying to express, okay, their feeling to Rohingya in terms of resentment, and we need to know why this situation happened. Okay, all right, can we go to another slide? Okay, and all this happened, okay, we can say that is due to the COVID-19 pandemic situation. Okay, so okay, I do believe all of us still remember what is happened. Okay, what was happened? Okay, back time during the COVID-19. Okay, and our situation is very intense and critical. Okay, at the earlier stage of COVID, because during that time, we don't have any vaccination, okay, program. So we do have some kind of the prevention initiative. That's why the situation is critical, and they also contribute into the growing resentment toward the Rohingya. And this picture show that one of the local newspaper of the Malaysia cover the one of the attempt of the Rohingya boat tried to enter the Malaysia. Okay, and also one of the COVID veteran, the Malaysian afraid. Okay, the Rohingya not only bring the themselves, but also they bring also the COVID virus all together with them. So it create the resentment toward the refugee. Okay, next slide. And also one of the psychological factor, okay, we can say that escapism. Okay, escapism actually is the one of the psychological coping mechanism when people try to escape emotional or psychological stress by putting a finger point into each other in order for them to express, okay, to release their stress. Okay, and of course, okay, during the COVID, for example, like in Malaysia, the government also launched the martial law, okay, the emergency, okay, the emergency policy, okay, many of Malaysian job losses, and we have a lockdown, we cannot go outside, okay, freely, and also during that time we're having an economic uncertainty, and all this contribute into the mental and emotional stress, especially for the Malaysians. So some of them, okay, instead of confronting the real source of pain, okay, the Malaysian, okay, they are trying to divert their stress toward the vulnerable people like Rohingya refugees, okay, especially throughout the media social. So can we go to the next slide? All right, and the number two factor, because during the lockdown, okay, the people cannot go outside. So one of the medium for them to communicate is through the social media. And during that time also, the emergence of the fake news, okay, the fake news situation, especially contribute into the growing resentment to the Rohingya refugee in Malaysia. And the picture that I show, okay, in the slide is one of the fake news, okay, in the social media. Okay, the title is written in Bahasa, okay, show that the photo is try to show the Rohingya try to demand the citizenship right, okay, as for just equal right as a Malaysian. So this title, okay, contribute into the hateful speech made by Malaysia. But when we study about the way some comparative study, we found that is the fake news, because the photo actually is during the peace demonstration, okay, not only attend by the Rohingya but also from the local Malaysia as well, to show the solidarity about the persecution that happening in Myanmar. So this photo not for the Rohingya to demand their right in Malaysia. So it is a fake news. Otherwise, but things happen. Okay, many of the Malaysian, they have been believed this is a real photo. Okay, and all of them try to boost their perception, the sentiment to Rohingya to other media social. So one of the factor that contribute into the statement is about the social media fake news. And we go to the next slide? All right. So it's the one of the banner made by the local. Okay, is the following up the resentment made by the social media. Okay, they are not welcome the Rohingya because they have been believed. Okay, what is the shared by through the social media is the true. Otherwise, actually, in the end, actually, it's a fake news. Next. Okay, this issue also have been identified by the Malaysian leader, okay, and also our former Prime Minister. They asked the Malaysia to stay calm, okay, stay calm because the news they identify through the social media actually is a fake news. So the Malaysian leader asked the Malaysia to just stay calm and try to do the cross check, especially the news that published and also posting through the social media. Okay, next. Okay, last factor, they also contribute into the growing resentment, and also it's about the perception of the social cultural difference. All right, and for your information, one of the factor that contribute into the hatred toward the Rohingya is one of the Pasar Borong Selayang located in the Selangor, especially in the Klang Valley in the Kuala Lumpur area. Okay, and for your information, Pasar Borong Selangor is the massive wet market in the Klang Valley area located in Kuala Lumpur and Selangor, and is the major supply, okay, for the for the fish and also the raw material, food material, and many of the Rohingya and other foreign workers work at the market. And towards the misperception and misunderstanding, it also create the anti-sentiment, especially toward the Rohingya, into the sub-factor, for example, the informal economic activity, and also the community clustering, and also the hygiene issues. All right, can we go to the next slide? Okay, so this situation happened outside the Pasar Borong, okay, because on the first place, all the seller, all the market sellers supposed to to sell their product inside the market. But what happened is, okay, those refugees and other foreign workers, they try to do the sell outside the market. So this also create the sentiment, the negative sentiment toward the refugees. Can we go to the next slide? All right, so they also cover by the social media, by the local NGO that not favor to Rohingya. Okay, they also create, okay, one of it, they are trying to create the anti-sentiment movement toward the Rohingya refugee in Malaysia. They said that though Pasar Borong have been occupied, have been conquered not by the local but instead by the refugee and also by the foreign worker. So this situation also contribute into the resentment of the Rohingya refugee in Malaysia. Okay, next slide. Okay, and one also the factor that contribute into these issues due to the hygiene. Okay, hygiene factor. All right. One of this picture, okay, shared by the public into our social media. Okay, local social media say that okay, the accused Rohingya is unhygiene person. It's not they're not willing to take care the cleaners and tidy and they perform the mistake. And can you imagine? Okay, they just put their car on the pedestrians walk. So this photo have been contribute into the resentment of the Rohingya refugee in Malaysia. Okay, next. All right. So before I end my presentation, okay, what should we do, or what should the Malaysian do? All right. So this some kind of the area and strategy need to be implement, okay, on the every level. For example, in the local level, I think one of the important point is that we need to have some kind of the community dialogue, cleaner initiative. In also one of the most important factor is that we need to initiate the intercultural program. Okay, because we know that the Rohingya refugee is coming from outside from Malaysia. So of course there is some kind of the different cultural, okay, interpretation among. So we need to have some kind of intercultural program dialogue in order to having, learning process among each other. All right, in terms of policy, okay, actually the government, okay, especially the Malaysia government, I think it's time for them to try to look critically into the issue, try to regulate informal economy, refugee registration, and also listening pathway. Okay, because Rohingya also as a human being, they also need to survive. Okay, especially in Malaysia for their daily life activity. Okay, so they cannot avoid from this kind of administrative and management activity daily days. And also the narrative, social media is play important role. Okay, play important role. So we need to have some cross-check, counter fake news, share a positive story, and also the media need to having, share the genuine news, not go for the sensation. That's why I still remember one of the Indonesia clip. Okay, when we talk about the media, okay, the media always tend to share, the mengejar sensasi dari substansi. So they're willing to project the sensational rather than the substance, okay? The content, the real content of the story. And last but not least, we cannot deny, okay, we have some, is also tackled by the Prof. Bernarji just now in terms of regional cooperation. Okay, ASEAN need to play a vital role, okay, major role in terms of refugee framework, coordinated humanitarian response, okay, and also this year Malaysia is become a ASEAN chairman, and also this month, okay, Malaysia we hosting the pit of the ASEAN chairmanship, and we hope that the Rohingya refugee and other refugee issue we can be uphold to discuss critically to find the solution together and to find a durable solution in order to bring the peace within our region. So with that, thank you very much. Terima kasih.
Thank you very much, Dr. Khairi. I think it was a really interesting, I would say, ethnographic presentation of the situation in Malaysia, where sympathy can turn into hatred. And the presentation has, I would say, neatly provide us with a picture of the multiple sides in which hate or hatred are being reproduced. It's not only about one person, it's not only about one group, but it also involves social media engineering, for instance, and the situation within the local economy, and the way the Rohingya refugees are connected to the local neighboring. So that makes sense to come up with a multi-layer recommendation for this issue, starting from what to do with the local communities, and then not up, and then it's not up, but from the local communities to what to do with the Asian community. So it's a multi-layer communities, I would say, and that brought us to the first and the second presentation. We see the importance to see this not only as a not territorially, I would say, but it's also connected to other countries. And other region in Asian, though there are some specificity in the way it is being experienced in a specific country. With that, I would invite our fourth speaker, Dr. Huria, lecturer in Political Science, Universitas Indonesia, who is also director of Center for Political Science, Universitas Indonesia, who is one of the hosts of this seminar today. Her research focuses on minority politics, human rights, and the intersection of religion and civic space in Indonesia. Dr. Hiria will talk more about the Indonesian case, so I think it will be interesting to have two cases, to have a complete picture of two cases being represented today. The floor is yours, Hakaria.
Thank you so much, Tika. It is my pleasure to be here. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for sticking with us. Being the fourth speaker of the day comes with two realities. Either you're ready for something profound or you're mostly thinking about snacks. And I'll try to keep us somewhere in the middle. So first, I want to say how grateful I am to be part of this important conversation, and I hope to contribute to something meaningful, maybe a little bit uncomfortable for Indonesian audience, but necessary. Because today I want to talk about something that's been quietly building in the background. It's about how we, as a country, are slowly but very clearly shifting our attitude toward a group of people who desperately need our help, the Rohingya refugees. Now I know refugee issues can feel distant, abstract, or political. But let's bring it closer to home. What happens when a country like Indonesia, which is famous for warmth, hospitality, and also tolerance, starts to turn its back on the most vulnerable? That's the story I want to share with you today. And today I want to talk about a crisis that is quietly intensifying on our doorstep. Crisis that not only tests Indonesia's humanitarian character, but also its political will and moral compass. It is the growing hostility towards the Rohingya refugees, a stateless people, who, after fleeing persecution, find themselves unwelcome, even in places once deemed sanctuaries, like Indonesia. Indonesia, a nation long admired for its cultural diversity and tolerance, is now facing a critical shift in how it responds to one of the world's most vulnerable population. Next slide, please. So when we talk about Indonesia, one question remains: is Indonesia still a haven for Rohingya refugees? Historically, Indonesia has played a unique role in the global refugee landscape. Although Indonesia is not a signatory to the UN Refugee Convention, the country has upheld important humanitarian principles. As of 2023, Indonesia has around 12,000 refugees under the protection of international bodies like IOM or UNHCR. These are mostly adult men, and among these refugees are the Rohingya, an ethnic Muslim minority fleeing systemic violence in Myanmar, as my fellow Nyinika already presented to all of you. And now their numbers in Indonesia have risen to approximately 2,800 as of early 2025. They arrive with nothing, often housed in temporary camps provided by local authorities or rented villages. And over time, some attempts to settle and integrate into local communities, renting their own homes and seeking informal work. But despite this semblance of support, something has changed. Next slide, please. So when we talk about Rohingya in Aceh, because Aceh hosts the largest population of Rohingya refugees, at least there are two types of refugee settlements in Aceh, based on our observation and also field research in 5 seeking asylum places in Aceh. For new arrivals, they are placed in temporary camps, either borrowed from local government or rented from villages, and they rely fully on humanitarian assistance. And for long-term refugees, they often try to find a local settlement. They rented their own house and try to integrate into local communities and seeking informal employment opportunities. But the year 2023 marked a critical turning point for the Rohingya in Indonesia. Next slide, please. The arrival of more Rohingya refugees triggered a backlash, especially in Aceh, which had previously welcomed them. Suddenly, in Aceh, media stories shifted. Community attitudes hardened. Protests broke out. Refugee boats were pushed back to the sea. Why does this happen? The reasons are complex. First, cultural differences and limited social integration fed public discomfort in Aceh. And second, local population, particularly in Sharia-abiding regions like Aceh, viewed the Rohingya as outsiders who did not respect local laws or norms. And third, economic anxieties played a major role because Rohingya were seen as competitors for jobs and resources. This change in sentiment coincided with Indonesia's election seasons in 2024. Even though, the year 2023 marked as a political year in Indonesia, politicians and opportunists exploited anti-Rohingya rhetoric to garner support, coordinated social media buzzers, amplified xenophobic narratives, presenting the Rohingya as not victims but threats. What had once been a humanitarian issue was being turned into a national security concern. So in this sense, what happened in Indonesia in 2023 and 2024 also resemble what had happened previously in Malaysia. So this political shift was not just rhetorical. Next slide, please. It translated into both formal and informal policy changes. Indonesia, as I mentioned, is not bound by the UN Refugee Convention. However, it has adhered to the principle of non-refoulement, that is, not sending refugees back to the origin country because it will expose them to more danger. The government has positioned itself as a transit country, working with the UN and international partners to seek third-party resettlements. But on the ground, things look very different. Next slides. Local governments, lacking clear national policies and resources, began rejecting new arrivals of Rohingya. Initially accommodating, they soon reversed course, citing security risk, social grievance, and also logistical burdens. In some coastal areas, residents were even instructed to block boats from landing. And based on our research, we found that the police play a key role in mobilizing coordinated local opposition in Aceh. Meanwhile, next slide, the central government adopted a dual approach. Soft diplomacy abroad, but a securitized strategy at home. Security forces were used to coordinate rejections. Media outlets were encouraged or even pressured to portray Rohingyas as criminals, human traffickers, and public threats. This is particularly evident in Aceh, based on our interviews with local journalists. This deliberative narrative shift undermined humanitarian efforts and further isolated the refugees. And we must also acknowledge the media role in Indonesia. In recent years, local and social media have shaped public opinion in deeply harmful ways. Two dominant narratives have emerged in Indonesian media, especially in local media. First, Rohingya are portrayed as social problem associated with crime, immorality. They are violating the Sharia law in Aceh, and disruption. And second, they are also portrayed as security threats linked to smuggling and also human trafficking. These narratives, based on our research, are not organic. They are crafted. In an age where online buzzers and digital manipulation are tools of political warfare, the Rohingya have become convenient scapegoat. And when fear becomes policy, the victims are not just the refugees, but also our values, our democracy, and our humanity. Next slide. Amid this darkness, of course, I believe that there are glimmers of hope. Our findings show that civil society in Indonesia has not remained silent. NGOs, as well as religious and humanitarian organizations, continue to provide assistance. Two largest organizations in Indonesia, NU and Muhammadiyah, also work in coordination with the government to provide humanitarian assistance based on Islamic principles and also Islamic solidarity. This organization also advocate for refugees and build bridges between communities. And these grassroots efforts matter. They show that empathy and solidarity are not yet extinct in Indonesia. In addition to that, socio-religious actors where voices are respected in local communities in Aceh have stepped up to remind people of shared Islamic values of compassion and hospitality. They emphasize that being Muslim does not stop at ethnic or national borders. And to some extent, this also play a key role, in encouraging the society to have social recognition towards the Rohingya refugees, even amid political turbulence during the 2023 and 2024 election years. These actors are playing a vital role in promoting tolerance and social cohesion, but they cannot work in isolation. This will bring us to the last slide. The key factor based on our finding is, of course, the government's role in refugee support. The decisive factor in this question remains the Indonesian government. The government must lead with consistency and moral clarity. It cannot champion human rights in international forums while undermining them at home. It cannot welcome refugees with one hand and push them away with the other, as what we see in Aceh for the past few years. Mixed messaging breeds confusion, fear, and even hostility. And this is also evidence in Aceh during the last year. So what we need in Indonesia is a policy that are not just reactive, but also proactive, grounded in human dignity and long-term planning. In addition to that, local communities must also be supported, not only to accommodate, but to understand and engage with the refugees. Because our research findings also find that the government and also the police, instead of encouraging social recognition from the local communities in Aceh, they criminalize fishermen who help the Rohingya refugees. This was evident in 2023. So let us remember, the Rohingya are not merely a burden. They are survivors of one of the most horrific ethnic persecution in our time. They are human beings who want nothing more than what any of us want: safety, dignity, and a future. And as a closing, I want to leave you all in this room with a question. What kind of nation does Indonesia want to be? A nation that turns its back on the desperate, or one that stands firm in its principle, even when it's hard? Our response to the Rohingya crisis will define not only our refugee policies, but our national identity. And let us choose compassion over fear, justice over expediency, humanity over hatred. Thank you. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
I can tell that there are similarities with the pattern in Malaysia, though again there are also some specificities. I think it's important to highlight the paradox in the way policies are being implemented, and also a paradox in the way Rohingya refugees are being portrayed in social media. And there are the presentation present or indicates that the way it's being portrayed in social media can also be part of attempt to reproduce sort of populist narrative, which can probably be used in intra-elite competition. So I think it's also, I think the presentation highlights how crucial it is to also see policies in this slide, that it's not neutral and it can be shaped by the dynamics of power relation. With that, I will turn to the last but not least presenter, Mbak Yuyun Wahyuningrum. She is the executive director of ASEAN Parliamentarians for Human Rights, and also a PhD researcher at Erasmus University. With over 27 years of experience, she has worked with various human rights organizations and founded Weaving Women's Voices in ASEAN, a feminist network advocating for women's and girls' rights in Southeast Asia, among others. I think Mbak Yuyun will provide deeper insight on ASEAN. So the floor is yours, Mbak Yuyun.
Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi, good morning. As the last speaker, I will be removing some of the slides because it's already mentioned. But let me, first slide, please. Next slide, please. I just would like to just give the more elaborative on what the earlier speakers have said in relation to forced migration of Rohingya. So it is divided into four, but more right now because it's already 2025 and more forced migration happening. I think last week or last 2 weeks, I read an op-ed in Diplomates. There is a second genocidal violence happening now against Rohingya. Yeah, that's only just to show the numbers, events, and how the systematic forced migration against Rohingya has been done since 1978. Next slide, please. So I would like to also remind everyone that this year is a decade of Andaman Sea crisis, exactly in this month, 2015, 2025. I wrote an op-ed published by Jakarta Post on this to remind ASEAN and also the ASEAN member states. I often send my op-eds to Jakarta Post because Jakarta Post is read by all diplomats, ambassadors, credentialed to ASEAN here in Jakarta. So intentionally, always in Jakarta Post. So 2015, mass grave found in a border between Thailand and Malaysia, and number of pushback of I mentioned earlier by the previous speakers that Rohingya tried to save their life to go to Indonesia, first to Thailand, Malaysia, and then Indonesia, only saved by Acehnese. And there are a number of things happening there. Among all countries in Southeast Asia, only Philippines offer the assistance to Rohingya in that time. Next slide, please. Thailand initiated a meeting. It called special meeting on irregular migration in the Indian Ocean. The reason why the name is irregular migration here, because Thailand, of course, invited Myanmar, but Myanmar refused to come if the word Rohingya included. They opt for Bengali or stranded boat people. It was rejected by a number of member states invited to this meeting. Then they find the midway of using irregular migration. A number of discussion had been mentioned in the meeting. Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, Bangladesh, Myanmar agreed to conduct a search and rescue operation, but Thailand insisted to refuse any receiving Navy vessels from anyone from Myanmar. But there is ASEAN declaration or ASEAN statement on rescuing the stranded people on stranded boat on the sea, based on this meeting. International community also offered some supports, such as Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Japan, Turkey, Gambia, and also the US. Australia has been recorded as refusing to offer any supports to the situation. So this year, there are a number of meetings related to the issue of stranded people, boat people, or Rohingyas. ASEAN finally organized the emergency ASEAN ministerial meeting on transnational crime on 2nd July 2015. And then in September, the ASEAN ministerial meeting on transnational crime also organized a meeting in Kuala Lumpur. Next slide, please. Just to make the story short, a number of meetings come up with the immediate number of meetings come up with the agreement, such as immediate response, protection of people stranded at sea. You can Google, you can find that ASEAN already come up with this. The use of this document is not necessarily effective. Some use, some not, because I think a couple years ago, Vietnam found the vessel and then sent back to Myanmar, and that boat consists of Rohingyas. So it is not the spirit of that document, actually. And then member states also agreed on comprehensive prevention of irregular migration, smuggling of migrants and trafficking in person, address root causes and improving livelihood at risk community, establish a trust fund to support humanitarian and relief efforts, but specifically on people, irregular migration or illegal movement of persons in Southeast Asia, and set up a task force. So a part of coming up with a declaration on the protection of people stranded at sea, none has been there. Even though trust fund was agreed, but we cannot see whether there is a trust fund in ASEAN right now, specifically to address the irregular movement. In ASEAN, there are so many funds, ASEAN Development Funds, ASEAN so many funds, but there is no specific funds as mandated by the document of the ASEAN ministerial meeting on transnational crime related to irregular movement. Also, a task force was agreed to establish specifically to address irregular movement, but as of now, we do not see this body exist. But if you look at the document and see and read between the line, you can find that ASEAN and member states continue conflate refugees and irregular migration. This is two different issues and approach, as mentioned by previous speakers of ASEAN member state on the issue of refugees, is true security and criminal issues rather than rights and protection. State-centric, sovereignty-driven approach continue to be dominant whenever ASEAN member state deals with the issue. Therefore, the presence of others, such as refugees, continue to be seen as a threat to national sovereignty. And rather than sharing, so if you join or if you participate in number of ASEAN meeting, you can hear shared regional responsibility, shared regional responsibility. But what does it mean by shared regional responsibility? Indonesia and other countries, whenever they talk about refugees, they also talk about shared responsibilities. But what does it mean by shared responsibilities? It need to be, of course, the idea is good, but it need to be defined. What is it? So people can, elaborate further and then identify, assess which whether pro and cons, advantages and disadvantages, and so on and so forth. Also, when you read the joint communique or chairman statement, the term or the word addressing root causes continue to be mentioned without further elaboration. So it's if we are it's like free to interpretation. Of course, in the discussion, they discuss about this in detail, but when it appeared to the official document, it's only said addressing root causes of the problem. So yeah, so next slide, please. So case studies already mentioned by all, so I don't want to mention it, but I'd like to just, because Dr. Banerjee mentioned earlier about Rohingya should be discussed in ASEAN. It is indeed the first time the discussion on Rohingya entered the discussion. I remember it was 2016. There has been a number of debates, and then only in 2018, under Singapore chair, that the word Rakhine crisis entered the official document. You can see the use Rakhine crisis rather than Rohingya actually tell us the message that we do not want to mention Rohingya. One member state said, we don't want to use the word Rohingyas. Other member states said, we don't want to use the word refugees because we are not part of the convention. And then others said, we only want to use Bengali. The other member state said, no word on Bengali in our document. Both people, again. So you can see the selection of words, Rakhine crisis, means so many things. Means so many words had been refused, so there are no negotiation among member states on how to include their discussion on Rohingya in the official document. But one thing that they agreed was the repatriation. It was rather weird for me because they should address the problem, not to bring back the Rohingyas immediately, even without the consent. But the document mentioned the repatriation should be voluntary, it should be dignified. And then ASEAN also deployed AHA Center to do the preliminary assessment. Unfortunately, after the preliminary process done, COVID-19 came. So until now, we do not know what is the status of this, of the process and operation to bring back Rohingyas to Myanmar. What I continue here from the Rohingyas, they refused to come to the bus, to take the bus, because bus was already there in the refugee camp, because there is no guarantee that they will be safe back in their own country. So, but if you ask Rohingyas, they always said, I want to go home. I want to go home. I want to go home. but the home is different between what the home by Rohingya and the home by the authority in Myanmar. Next slide, please. So I think this is only the repetition from what the previous speakers already mentioned. Disinformation and hate speech becoming the common drivers of resentment against Rohingyas in different countries in Southeast Asia. Institutional neglect and legal ambiguity mentioned by Dr. Huria just now. National security framing and racialization also mentioned by previous speakers, and specifically in Malaysia and also in Indonesia, job competition become one of the issue. Never before, but now becoming more and more mentioned that Rohingya will grab the job of the locals. In fact, refugees cannot work. They don't have right to work. So again, there is a gap of understanding what the refugee can and cannot, with the accusation of the refugee will take their job. Next, please. Mention as strategies, of course, mentioned by, again, the previous speakers. Regional cooperation is very important. Responsibility sharing is also very important. It requires elaboration on what does it mean by what kind of regional cooperation, responsibility sharing. When I was ICHA representative for 6 years, I continued to bang the door asking ASEAN to come up with the ASEAN framework on refugees protection, but no one buy. The topic has been not popular for many member states. Community-based integration program is also something that we can do ad hoc and already happened in Malaysia, Thailand, as well as Indonesia. Media information literacy campaign is also very important. As mentioned earlier, there are a lot of disinformation, misinformation, and media contribute to this misinformation rather than trying to clarify what and on the misinformation and fake news. Empowering refugees voices in policy making is also another area that we need to encourage. I think Suaka has been doing this a lot. I think during COVID-19, I've been invited to a meeting organized by refugees to know about many things. So it's actually very good that refugees take control over what they can and what they should do in terms of advocacy. And my op-ed suggesting that ASEAN member state to take refugees from the perspective of development and rights, not always look at the refugee issues from the security point of view. So that's may provide more ways in how we can live together with refugees in the country. I also would like to mention here, among all issues that we mentioned, Philippines has a scholarship program for Rohingyas. And last week I went to Kuala Lumpur, had a meeting, and I met with organizations that have been approached by Philippine government, Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Ministry of Justice and Ministry of Home Affairs in Philippines to supply apologies the term supply Rohingyas to come to the Philippines and to study. Philippines provided a high education here, like S1, S2, S3, bachelor degree, master, and PhD. But the way they do it, before they come, of course, there are a number of screening before they come to Manila. But when they arrive in Manila, they convert the citizenship into Philippines citizen. So that's one way of Philippine government's effort to reduce the contradiction or conflict between the locals and the non-locals, because they come as Philippines. Whatever their background, they come Philippine, they are citizen. Again, I'm not sure whether this is effective, but perhaps this is how government think of reducing possible contraction within the country. I think this may require further research. This is one thing that maybe UI, University of Indonesia, can develop further, whether this approach is is effective on reducing, because I think it is very normal and common that governments try not to have like a local dispute among people, and whether or not they give their consent into it. They want to so maybe they want to save their life, go to the country, take education. As a trade-off, they give up their citizenship. I don't know, but I keep hearing so many good things. Of course, it's biased because this is organization providing the service, but worth to dig further into research. As a ASEAN Parliamentarian for Human Rights is an NGO. Our members coming from MPs, sitting MPs, and former MPs coming together speaking about human rights. Very often, we created a dialogue platform for Rohingyas to talk to the MPs directly, or asking Rohingyas to come up with the questions, so the questions can be asked in the parliamentary session. Like in Malaysia, every Tuesday, MPs interact with the executive branch of government. So Prime Minister always come on Tuesday morning, and that's the time when the MP will ask question like, I have a question from Rohingya refugees living in Sapang or something. They ask, what the government's respond on this. So this is also something that we encourage to happen. Seeking the accountability of governments. And another thing is, I think it's already mentioned by previous speakers, of having or building the inclusive national narrative that is positive to refugees. We need to, and I found number of good narrative in Canada, in Germany, and many things. But I think each country need to come up with their own contextualized messages, because what is good for Canada may not understood better in the context of Indonesia. So when I was in Aceh, I was interviewed in a podcast, because of course the context is Aceh. Then I said, Prophet Muhammad was refugees before. So why we treat our refugees in such a way? We are follower of Muhammad. Why? So this kind of, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know whether that message is reached to different people in Aceh, but taking the example of what we know and what we closer to, maybe is something that we can do. Yeah. Strengthening domestic oversight on refugee treatment. Some countries like Malaysia, they close their eyes, they close their ears so they allow refugees to come without many. So that's also an approach of Malaysian government in the name of humanitarian. So the law does not allow them to, does not allow refugees to live in Malaysia, but some governments intentionally close their eyes and close their ears. Indonesia has the presidential decree, and we need to monitor, and you need to strengthen, we need to take the opportunity, advocacy, how to strengthen this domestic oversight on refugees treatment. I hope, I don't know, yeah, under this current regime, but we have, as an NGO, we have to continue to knock the doors. Next slide, please. So this is, I think, my last slide. The what is this? The document that I pictured, recommendation from, this is from Rohingyas. That is why the word Rohingyas and civil society. A recommendation coming from Rohingyas, and we put this as the promise. IPHR bound with what we have agreed in this recommendation to implement what Rohingyas asked us to do. And then last 2 weeks, in May 7th, we follow up the recommendation to what extent each organization participating in the September meeting had implemented what we have agreed. And one of the output was to write the letter to Prime Minister Anwar, because next week there will be a summit, 46th summit in Kuala Lumpur. So we would like to send this letter to Prime Minister Anwar. And we hope he will read, and I don't know what he can do, but at least this is something that Rohingyas want us to do, and we comply with what Rohingya community, especially in Malaysia, want us to help them. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mbak Yun. I think I will just quickly highlight some important points from the presentation. First is on some paradox in the legal document, and also in the challenge of implementing the legal documents. But there are also an issue of narrative or discourses between the right versus security-based issues, and the former, the right-based issue, is the one that we need to promote more. And I think one of the most important thing from the presentation is also about examples of how a solution or attempts to intervene with the problem has been conducted on the field, on the ground, and some success, it can be effective, it can be effective, it can be less effective, but it's a way of doing something. And as you said, we need to keep on knocking the door. I like I like the last statement. With that, I would so we are 15 minutes behind schedule. We were supposed to be done 15 minutes ago, but because we also start late, a bit late, so I will, as a moderator, I will use my authority to invite a question from audience in this room, because we already have 2 questions from audience on the Zoom. So I think we can finish in another 15 to 20 minutes to allow a brief discussion with our distinguished speakers. So, yes.
Thank you. Good day, everyone. My name is Rizka. I'm from Research Center for Politics, National Research and Innovation Agency, BRIN. First of all, thank you very much for all the speakers. Hearing all of your presentation today make me a little bit hopeless of the situations, because when the politics of resentment happen in the public level, met with the politics of ignorance in the states level, it become a very dire situation, since now we are now facing the declining capacity of international agency. So my first question is, as we all maybe know that in handling refugees, states are very reliant on the capacity of international organizations like IOM and UNHCR. At least that's what happened in Indonesia. I don't know what in Malaysia or Thailand, whether I think the same case with UNHCR's over-reliance. So with the declining capacity of this organization, particularly due to the specific political dynamics in the United States, do you have any updates from the field? What is going to happen with the plight of Rohingyas and the way to deal with the recent situation of crisis? And the second question is that now, along with the declining capacities, the politics of resentments, the ignorance from the states, civil society become the last resort to continue the voice of refugee protection. So do you have any stories based on your experience and or insights about about the extent of which network of civil society can present or can give this counter counter narrative to the resentment and specifically giving the real practice of protection for the Rohingya? I think that's the question for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marisa, for the question. And I think the question can be answered by all panelists. Everyone get the question already, or? Huh? Yeah, but did you get? I'll get the question. Okay, so I will read the next two questions from participants on Zoom. Oh. Yeah, and you, and then one more question, two more questions from participant on the Zoom.
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity. Hello, my name is Rizky Bangun. I come from Komnas Perempuan, National Commissions Against Violence Against Women. So basically, we are also conducting a research. Basically, it's last year. We are coming in person to Aceh and North Sumatra to check specifically because we are focusing on the issue about violence against women, or basically gender-based violence. So we trying to check, because based on the data that maybe Kak Ria tadi mentioned before about the 73% of the refugees is women and children, and so we are concerned more about how the camp, or how it's just handling the situation on the camp. So basically, it's not about the question. It's basically updating from the government sides, not specific the government side. We are from the national human rights. So yeah, we are not the government basically. So Komnas Perempuan responded to the situation by forming a Rohingya crisis response and release a press release in the December 2023. And in developing a comprehensive response, the Indonesian government needs to prevent this condition that we already said it to the Kementerian. Maybe it now it's dispute with the human rights and also law. Specifically, we giving them some specific solution about improving cross-sector and regional coordination, ensuring refugee shelter location, stopping the polemic about the Indonesian refugees with the legal approach, and also specifically about the Indonesian position, because we are not. Yeah, sure. Yeah. So so our question is, or maybe my question is adding some perspective from Komnas Perempuan perspective. So what kind of effort that may be already done by the other government to focus on the fulfillment of women's specific needs, such as safe space, adequate sanitation, psychological support, and also legal assistance. As because also we also have the research about this, maybe the process of inadequate consistently address when they are waiting for the placement. Maybe I don't know I don't know the perfect terms for this, but maybe the placement for the third country, because we know that Indonesia, specifically Aceh and Sumatra Utara, is only a temporary place for the camp. Maybe that's the things. Thank you.
Thank you. Unfortunately, we can only accommodate 2 questions from this room.
I don't think each of us needs to tackle all the questions because, right? So I think I would only respond to the very first question, right? So because I can, the rest of the questions are not really related to, So with the fall in resources for the international refugee regime, what's happening now, right? And what is going to happen, right? To be totally honest, well, from what I've heard from the people on the ground, they're at a very bare minimal survival, right? So how long it is going to sustain itself, right? So geopolitically speaking, it's very bad, right? So now, I mean, there are two possibilities, right? Will Europe jump in? I don't think so with what's happening in Ukraine and and the other possibility is the global south, so-called global south, or Asia or Southeast Asia or South Asia. Will they take care of themselves? I don't think they are ready yet. So it seems like sorry to sound very hopeless, but to be totally honest, it's very hopeless, right? For now, right? But will the US change? Will Europe jump in? And will the global south, even especially China and India, will they do something about it? Let's see. Sorry for not being too optimistic. I'll stop here.
I think well, I don't know. I'm also not too optimistic about things in general. But Professor Banerjee, I would invite you to answer the question on Zoom on
Yes.
how on promoting displaced Rohingyas as people of the region against the dominant narrative of
Yeah, because
the
very
region
frankly,
itself. Because well, the question is the term region itself is highly contested. So thank you. The floor is yours.
thank you so much. Actually, the only way to fight hopelessness is with hope. So, Nini, as somebody from the region, has every right to feel hopeless. But I, as a researcher, cannot afford to be hopeless. So the hope, as I suggest, is by getting out of this narrative.
Sorry, we cannot hear you here. I'm not sure what's wrong.
My microphone is on. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
You are
I
audible
can,
for the audience.
Okay, okay.
I can hear you
Wonderful.
too. Yeah.
Okay, lovely. So I'm not sure, madam, what is the problem in the hall, but I will just go ahead and reply that we cannot, the thing that we cannot be is, cannot afford to be is hopeless, because the situation is very, very crucial right now. And I saw the question that is posed directly to me. It is against the notion of region. Yes, I understand that as a social scientist, that region is a contested word. Discursively, I will contest it million times. But when we are talking about a problem which is alive here and now, there is no, let's say it this way, there is no possibility of contesting the region because there is an ASEAN. And that is why I said the ASEAN has the responsibility of people within its parameters. Every state has a defined border. Within those borders, the ASEAN exists. So the ASEAN can work together as, the last speaker spoke. And thank you so much for bringing it out. It is constantly these rhetorics that is posing a problem. I have myself been in discussion for ILO on migrant workers, and constantly we are so caught up with these terminologies of irregular, regular. Tell me something. If there is a safe, regular, orderly way of doing something without much cost, why should people become irregular? The answer is with the states. If the states want it to be safe, orderly, and regular, they have to make it possible to do so. The same way, if the region wants statelessness to disappear, the region has to take it up as an agenda, not as a sideline, as a compromise of saying it's a Rakhine issue. No, it may have begun as a Rakhine issue, but right now it is very specifically a Rohingya issue. And my concern is if people of the region get together, decide to talk about it, decide to question the stand of the states are formed of its people. The states will have to listen to them because as human beings, everyone has some intrinsic right, and we cannot, as sovereign states, violate those rights. And that is exactly what we are doing with the Rohingyas. Thank you very much.
Very much. Thank you very much, Professor Banerjee. Now,
Testing. Okay, let me give some feedback. The question from the Zoom audience in terms of the social media narrative. All right. So if you aware, the slide that I just shared, okay, just now, okay, the picture that show the fake news actually is not came from Malaysia. Instead, that it came from Indonesia, meaning that there is some, some unity in terms of Malaysia and Indonesia. Also we call it Nusantara in order to spread the fake news issue in terms of creating the bad narrative towards the Rohingya. So that's why, okay, that's why more important, okay, in order to in order to combat all those bad narrative. Okay, this initiative not only coming from the local social media made by the Malaysian, but also the Indonesian, the Nusantara as well need to put into together. Okay, to go into the junior narrative in order, and also to we as a social media user need to have some cross check. Okay, cross check before we sharing the news. Okay, that's a thing that no, the fake news is one of the issue, but most importantly, the sharing. Okay, sharing the posting is one of the critical issue that contribute into the spreading the hatred of toward the resentment of the Rohingya. So that's why more importantly is you need to carefully scrutinize and also to having a cross check before we are sharing whatsoever social media news, especially in terms of the Rohingya refugee issues within our region. Okay, so let me also give some feedback. The question made by Ibu Rizka, right? Okay, in terms of recent initiative. This policy has been produced by the National Security Council of Malaysia, or NSC. Okay, because for government side, they look, refugees or Rohingya refugee and other refugee as a threat of the security. So rather than recognize, okay, there is some kind of the special policy in order to managing, the refugees in Malaysia, but at the same time, the policy itself is not recognize the wording of refugee. Okay, the Malaysia government recognize refugee as illegal immigrant, but illegal immigrant that possessing the UNHCR card. Okay, pendatang tanpa izin yang memegang kad UNHCR. So that's a policy made by the government. But last year, okay, the government have been upgrading their policy in order to include the subdivision of policy to having some kind of the documentation process, meaning that is some kind of the one step forward. Okay, the Malaysia government try to do the initiative in order to initiate the documentation process in order to cross-check, okay, the status of the UNHCR card possessed by the refugee in Malaysia, including Rohingya, and also one of the documentation also direct by the government. Because, in reality, there is some kind of the the changing, the dynamic relationship between the UNHCR Malaysia and also the government of Malaysia. Sometimes is a good condition, sometimes in bad condition. That's why, in terms of trust building, is still a question mark. Okay, within the government of Malaysia and also the UNHCR. That's why the government, starting the last year, try to initiate, okay, the documentation process, in order to recognize, to address, the number of refugees in Malaysia. So I think this is a good step, okay, in order to clarify first the number of refugees. Second, then the next step, okay, the next step that can we initiate in order to uphold the right of Rohingya and other refugees in Malaysia, okay, and other initiative made by the Malaysian, especially the local NGO. All right, actually there is several local NGO in Malaysia try to uphold the right of Rohingya in terms of, in particular, in education. For example, they provide the alternative learning center for Rohingya and other refugees in Malaysia. And also nowadays, they're also going for the one step ahead in order to having the some kind of job placing activity. Okay, so meaning that the refugee in Malaysia not only having the education, alternative education, but also at the same time they try to allocate the economy opportunity to have a job seeker program to Rohingya to have their own job. Okay, and so in terms of healthcare, but for me, one of important things that we cannot deny the role of refugee organization itself. For example, there is some kind of the refugee organization in Malaysia. For example, Rohingya also have their own organization. We have Yemeni refugee, Syrian refugee, Palestinian refugee, the refugee from Africa have their own organization. So I think most important thing, this organization need to have some collaborative effort with the local NGO in Malaysia, and also this kind of collaboration need to be a whole, okay, in towards the government level, so that they become some kind of the institutionalized collaboration network, so that we can also protect not only the status of refugee but kind of their future, meaning while they are stay in Malaysia. And last but not least, before I end my feedback, one of the things that is quite important in order to have some balancing relationship between the local and also the refugee in terms of the cultural education. Okay, cultural education. Because for your information, before 2012 or before the resettlement exists, actually the relationship between the Rohingya refugee, other refugee with the local is quite good. Okay, quite good, because during that time the number of refugees is not many compared today. That's why the refugee basically they are mingled with the local. Okay, for example, before this the number of Rohingya is not much as compared today. So basically they are going to the local mosque, local musola, they are praying together, they have some conversation together. But nowadays, because the numbers of Rohingya refugees is increasing, they are build their own colony. Their own colony, their own settlement. That's why, okay, the activity is creating the negative sentiment toward the local. So I think one important thing is the intercultural education and communication is a must in order to balancing and also to promote the peaceful relationship between the local and also the refugee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to respond to the Komnas Perempuan's question on what else need to be done. I think given the organizations such as Komnas Perempuan has access to policymakers, also governments, also BRIN. BRIN is the, the government states research institute. There has been number of campaign in Indonesia, but we need to emphasize this, especially with the new regime. First is on that Rohingya refugees in Aceh need to be moved to houses. I went to Aceh and the places is not proper for human to live. It's a school. It's very dense. So and then it was guarded by security. It's as if they are criminals. So it would be better for them to be housed in a proper compound and treat them as a human, because they have been living there for years. And then the other place that I visited, I cannot remember, it is PD or other. In Aceh, they were in tents just next to the sea. So it is also not proper for human to live, because it's so hot during daytime. I think proper housing would be very important, safe for the beach as well, can continue to be a touristic areas. So it's actually serve the interest of the local governments. Second, that's on right to housing. If the word right to housing is not something that sellable to government, maybe proper accommodation. Second is many organizations, including BRIN, had been campaigning on right to livelihood, right to work, and right to education for children. So if we look at it, I think government of Indonesia need to shift the thinking of looking at refugees from a caricative approach, helping, to more development and rights. Because children that will be educated Indonesia will have the advantages of children being educated. Some of the local governments in Indonesia now open state schools for refugees, including Rohingyas, but they couldn't give the certificates because certificates have to be supported by like a birth certificate and others, which some Rohingyas may not have. But if we can go beyond that and remove this kind of difficult requirement for Rohingyas, these children that will be educated, SMP, SD, SMP, SMA, they will the Indonesia will get the benefit of them being educated because they can go work. Because there's an assumption if you don't have anything to do, you do crime. So if you do something more useful to the community, to others, that's contribution to the society. So actually giving them access will bring back the benefit to the governments of Indonesia. I think that's that kind of approach that we need to use and to look at rather than seeing them as the others in Indonesia. And there has been a number of research that prove that refugee children that are educated in the country, the benefit will return to the country. Second, this is something that I also see with so much interest in Malaysia. Organization conducted cultural event. Refugees cook their food and then serve. So if Komnas Perempuan as a body, national body that can provide this kind of food festival to introduce to others, to Indonesian community, at least in Jakarta or others, on the food coming from your own. And then so they can tell this, because all food has usually have the stories, why it come about and why they put this and why put that, because I like a cooking book because in the cooking book there are stories why they use this, why that. So it's a story of the individual, of ethnic group, of society, why they choose as it is, and the taste also. It's tell you the story, and then it give you a little bit closer to the society. Indonesia is built by Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, diversity. So why can't we accept another diversity, make our diversity diversified? So these kind of community events need to be encouraged more. And I think that's what I saw in Malaysia's community. Many organizations created this kind of events, and the discussion, the dialogue established, offered the food. So that's 3 suggestions that I would like to propose to Komnas Perempuan, given the institution is the state body as well as BRIN. And there is a question. Maybe I read. Question to Dr. Huria and Ibu Yuyun. Refugees in Aceh and Indonesia in general face several challenges, including lack of access to education, restricted freedom of movement due to securitization measures, and inadequate living condition, such as the absence of proper camps or designated sites. Humanitarian funding has been the global a global decline, which is likely to have serious consequences for refugees in the future. In light of this, how CSO and socio-religious leaders step in to help bridge the gaps and support those in need. So given this situation, I think what Indonesia's approach to refugees by putting them in a camp is now irrelevant, I think, because it gives more burden to the government rather than house them into a housing, and then they can work in UMKM or work in informal. It's lighten the burden of the local government, I would say. And yes, I came back. I just come back from Mesot, fact finding in Mesot and also in Chiang Mai. I did not met a lot of Rohingyas there. I met a lot of refugees, not coming from Rohingyas, but more Mon, Chin, Kachin, Karen. This decline of funds have been affect them very much, too much, I would say, and almost similar. They cannot work, so they said I opened a Shan noodle shop, but no one know. Whenever they saw Thai police, they immediately closed, or they do it in the houses, telling the neighbors that we are open for Shan noodle. So this is happening in different countries, regardless whether you are Rohingyas or not Rohingyas. It's experienced by all refugees, how the decline of US funds affect their life as of now, including children. They cannot go to school in Chiang Mai and also in Mesot, and I also assume it is going to be here. APHR will only do the fact finding to Bangladesh in October. So we will see how this funding cut will affect their life at daily situation.
Very short about children and education, right? So I was based in Thailand before I moved to the UK last December for more than 2 years. So I think Thailand is Thailand is not very good with the Rohingya. That's very true, right? But in terms of other refugees from Myanmar, Thailand has been pretty good, right? They're pretty hospitable, and especially for children and education, because Thailand is a very good role model for that education for all, right? Of course, Thailand needs people, because of the declining birth rates. Indonesia is not in that position. Malaysia is not. But I still remember a word, something I was told by one of my professors like 15 years ago: nobody hates children, right? So maybe children could be a good way to start, right? Children and education. So, human resources, right? Human capital is something very important, something that could be very useful, even for a country like Indonesia or even Malaysia, right? So, and when there was a case of illegal, migrant children's school closed by force in Thailand in 2022 or 2023, I still remember Deputy Police Colonel of Thailand, the Deputy Police Chief of Thailand, saying that if we don't school these children, how are we going to integrate them in the future? So the Thai authorities were already thinking of integrating them into the Thai workforce at least, right? So I think that's one way, right? So children could be a very good way, a very good first way to start with. I'll stop here. Thank you very much.
May I continue where Nini has
Okay,
left?
in the last
Yes, just 2
response, I will just
seconds.
add a little information from what we found on the ground in Aceh. I share same grievance with my fellows from BRIN and also from Komnas Perempuan, especially when we talk about Rohingya refugees. They are indeed in a dire situation right now in Aceh. They live in a very improper place, tent or like a housing, or even like in a small place borrowed from the local companies in Aceh. And especially for women refugees, they are the most vulnerable when it comes to violence and discrimination, not only discrimination from the local communities in Aceh, but also a threat of sexual violence among the refugees. In Aceh, most of the women refugees were accused of engaging with prostitution, for example, and also they are accused of engaging in unlawful sexual activities based on the Sharia law. At the same time, they also suffer from depression and fear of sexual violence in the camps, because most of the refugees were men adults. So this is a very frustrating situation for women refugees, and most likely in many cases they don't have the courage to tell their stories. So there is an increased number of depressed women refugees now in Aceh and in refugee camps. And with the budget cuts from the U.S. government, the situation is also like giving more pressure to refugees, because now they only receive 1 million rupiah for a family. So it's a very small money. But last week when I checked on the news, I read that the UN reinstate funding for Rohingya refugees after US cuts, even though the funding is still small. And one of our colleagues in IOM also said that it is more difficult for IOM to facilitate the refugees because of the budget cuts. And in addition to that, the problem is also when we talk about Indonesian situation, Indonesia doesn't have a clear national policies or budget. So for the local government, even though they want to coordinate and also they want to help the refugees, they don't have the budgets. They don't have the funding needed to help the refugees. What they can offer is facilitating a temporary camp for the refugees, but they really rely on the IOM or UNHCR. And also, I think even though the situation is very depressing, I still have a hope when we talk about Indonesia. At least when we talk about the rise of resentment politics, it was particularly evident during the election year. But after the 2024 election, the situation is much more calmer. There is no longer politicization of Rohingya issue or anti-Rohingya propaganda used by either a politician or buzzers in social media. But the effect of anti-Rohingya sentiments still persists in the local communities. And this is where social religious leaders in Aceh play an important role, because they promote tolerance. They also advise local communities, to uphold to uphold not only tolerance but also relate the situation of the Rohingya with what happened in Aceh during the tsunami in 2004. So they play important role in promoting social inclusion, using stories and also experience of Aceh people in 2004 back in that time. And also the role of civil society organization, including local organization in Aceh, is also important, because they work closely with the international organization in promoting dialogue and also social inclusion. Because one of the challenges is also, as Mbak Yuyun mentioned, the refugees are fully concentrated in camps, and they don't have opportunity to integrate and to interact with the local communities. And oftenly this create a prejudice towards the Rohingya refugees from the local communities. So by doing and also promoting social integration and also communication and dialogue between refugees and local communities, and also like informal activities, informal education activities for the refugee children is also very helpful to heal the tension between local communities and also the refugees. So I also agree with what Nini already mentioned. We can also start with education by promoting inclusion, not only relying on the national policies or local government policies, but from a bottom-up approach promoted by CSOs and also religious leaders and religious groups in Aceh. Thank you. Back to you, Tika.
Thank you. We have so little time for the sort of issues and topic that we need to discuss more. But I think that indicates that we need to do this not more often, but need to find a way to engage with each other more meaningfully. I think this is a start, and it will be good if we can find again a way to connect with each other. So again, before closing, I would like to thanks everyone for participating today, and also for our speakers. Thank you, and it's such an honor and to be here and be part of this sort of discussion where we can share insights from different perspective, different region. We can see some patterns. I think we can also agree on some things. So with that, I close the discussion. I would like to encourage everyone to read the speaker's work, Google their name and read their work, and perhaps reach out to them as part of organization, individual, to start the conversation. So thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you enjoy your lunch, and I hope to see everyone again soon.